Hi guys, this is going to be your first reading video for the week of November the 9th. In last week's video, we learned about government. We talked about different parts of government. Our title for Unit 3 is Government at Work. So all in this unit, we're going to be learning about the different parts of government and how government works. Our essential question asks us, why do we need a government? We talked a little bit about the different things that our government is made up of. Last week we read the story Smoke Jumpers, and we learned that firefighters are an important part of our government because they work for the government. We also learned that there are lots of people that work for the government. School teachers, doctors, emergency workers, road construction people, firefighters, police officers. All of those are examples of people that work for the government. Their jobs are very important to us because they help us. Other parts of our government include making laws and different representatives that are elected when we vote to represent our city, our state, and our country. Our laws are important because they help keep us safe. They help protect us. So our government is a big part of our environment. And it's important because it helps to keep us safe. It helps to protect us. Another thing that we talked about last week were people in our history that helped set up our government. We talked about the different leaders. George Washington was our very first president, and he had a very big role in helping to set up our first government. Today, I want to look at your reading booklet on page 12, and the title of this story is Our Government's Laws. As I read this story, we're going to be thinking about what we thought when we read Smoke Jumpers. We're going to be distinguishing between important and unimportant information. As I look at this story, I can already see there are pictures and there are real pictures of real places and real things. So I know that I'm going to be learning about facts and information. I also can read the title, Our Government's Laws, and I see the picture of the seat belt and buckle up, it's the law. And I know that in this story, I'm going to be learning some facts and information about our laws. Another thing that is important is looking at our subtitles. Here we see the introduction. So I know in these two paragraphs, I'm going to be reading about the introduction. This is titled, Why Does the Government Make Laws? So in paragraph 3 and paragraph 4, I'm going to be learning about why they make laws. Look at paragraph 5. I have another subtitle, How Does the Government Keep Order? So in this paragraph, I'll be learning about keeping order. When we read Smoke Jumpers, we practiced identifying important and unimportant information. Today, we're going to continue to practice this skill as we read our government's laws. So listen as I read. Are you ready? Here we go. Our Government's Laws by Nia Brown. Introduction. Every country has a government. A government is a group of people. This group of people works together to make important decisions for the country. In the United States, the government for the country is called the federal government. It runs national programs. Each state has its own government too. Cities and towns also have their own local governments. As I look back at these two paragraphs, I can look for the important information. It's a lot like what we talked about when we find the main topic and the supporting details. The important information is usually the first sentence because it tells me all that I'm going to be reading about. If I notice my first sentence, it says, every country has a government. A government is a group of people. So in this first couple of sentences, I've learned a little bit about government, what it is and who it is. And as I look, I can learn a little bit about the different parts of our government. Making decisions. The federal government is another word for it. It runs national programs, and cities and towns have their own local governments. So as I look at this, I can pick out the important details that help tell me more about the word government. Remember that our main topic is found usually at the very beginning, and the supporting details follow that as I look at the sentences that come after. So those are important parts. Let's keep reading. Why does the government make laws? All governments make laws. A law is a rule that everyone has to follow. A government makes laws to keep citizens safe. For example, every child in a car must wear a seatbelt. This is the law. In most states, adults must wear seatbelts too. Anyone who does not is breaking the law. So let's go back to this sentence and identify important information. The very first thing I notice is the title is asking me about making laws. So I know automatically that that is going to be my topic. And then my details are going to tell me more about making laws. I also can read my first sentence. All governments make laws. And so as I read that first sentence, I know I'm learning about making laws. So that is my topic, my main topic. Then I can look behind it to find my details. Laws are rules for people to follow. Laws keep us safe. And I find an example of a law, wearing a seatbelt. That's an example of a law. So all of those are details that help tell me more about making laws. All right, let's keep going. Paragraph 5's title says, how does the government keep order? Laws help the government keep order. Laws tell people what they can and cannot do. For example, there are laws about how fast a car can go. The speed limit on many highways is 65 miles per hour. There are also laws about which streets that cars can drive down. So in this part, I've learned just a little bit about keeping order, but it continues to the next page. So I'm going to continue that next paragraph and then we'll keep going. Police officers work for the government. Some work for the local government. Others work for state or federal government. They work to make sure people follow the laws. All right, so let's back up. This paragraph, the title was Keeping Order. So I know my topic is going to be how the government keeps order. Well, the laws tell us what we can do. And so I know that detail is there. The laws tell us what we can and can't do. And it tells us in the next paragraph that police officers work for the government. They are the ones that help keep control. After reading this subhead, I know to look for the details that answer the question, how does the government keep order? Right away, I notice that the first sentence answers that question by giving readers important information. It says laws help the government to keep order. So the first part of keeping order are laws, having laws in place. The second and the third sentences also give important information by explaining what laws do. It even gives me an example of a law. Driving 65 on a highway is one law that we have. So how fast a car can go is an example of a law. And the last paragraph, it gives me the example of police officers and that they help to make sure people follow those laws. All right. The next paragraph says what happens when a law gets broken. Many things can happen when a law gets broken. Here's an example. When a school bus is stopped to let students get on or off, cars are not allowed to pass. It is against the law to pass a school bus that has stopped for students. But one day, a man drives past a school bus that has stopped for students. A police officer sees this. He makes the driver stop. The officer writes a ticket. The ticket says which law the driver has broken, and it lists a fine the driver may have to pay. Sometimes a person may have to go to court. In the courtroom, a judge is in charge. The judge knows all about laws. A jury is a group of people. They are chosen to listen to the court cases. Many juries have 12 people. A judge and a jury listen to see if the person breaks the law. In court, a person tells his or her side of the story. Then the jury decides if the person breaks the law. Next, the judge decides what happens to that person. All right. So in these paragraphs, the subtitle says what happens when a law gets broken. So as I read these paragraphs, I know to look for key details that help tell me about laws being broken. I know that I'm going to be reading about laws being broken because it tells me that in my first sentence as well. Many things happen when a law gets broken. And then it gives me an example. It talks about a school bus driver and how they stop and how people are supposed to stop when a school bus stops. And it gives me an example of a man getting a ticket. Remember that a ticket is something you receive as a penalty for breaking the law. You might even have to pay money, which is called a fine. Those are other details that help tell me what happens. If it has to go to court, then you would appear before a judge and a jury. Remember, it says a jury is a group of people, and they will listen to the case and they will make a decision about whether or not that person really broke the law. These key details are the important parts of this story because they help tell me more about this question: what happens when a law gets broken? When I'm reading a story like this, I want to look for the title and I want to look for the information underneath it that are most important to that title. That helps me to know what is important and what is not important. On the last page, page 16, it says conclusion. Remember that a conclusion is the ending. It says there are federal, state, and local governments. They all pass laws. The laws help keep people safe. The laws help keep order. Police officers help keep order too. In this story, I have just read about our government's laws. I got to look at different parts of our laws and read important information about telling me more about our government's laws. Remember that when we read a story like this, we're looking for important information that helps tell us more about our title or our subtitles. And those key details are the parts that we need to remember because those are the parts that help answer our questions and help us better understand what we're reading about. As we continue our study this week of government, we're going to be learning a little bit more about some other workers of our government. We're going to be learning about community workers. We're also going to learn a little bit more about police officers. So, as we finish, remember to look for the main topic and remember to look for the key details that back up the main topic when you read. Good job. See you next time.